Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. I'm at my brand new studio, and this is Simply Drawing with Everett tonight, 7:30. So welcome back. For those of you returning, those of you who are brand new tonight, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'd be glad to have you aboard. And if you have questions and answers, give me a question and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'm broadcasting from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And welcome all those aboard. And I Simply Drawing with Everett and Twitch. So now tonight let's go to I got my overhead camera. I want to show you a couple things here. I'll switch my overhead camera. And this is this book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. This is kind of some of the things I've been going along with my last presentations. I'd like to read just a statement here in the book here to where we are, kind of give a little bit of summary. Just a quick sentence I picked out. Here it says, the first sentence. Now you have gained experience with the first three perceptual skills of drawing. The perception of edges, spaces, and relationships. You are ready to put them together with the fourth skill, the perception of lights and shadows. So that's what we're doing tonight. We're going to do a still life, and we're going to do some shading together, okay? So this is my example tonight. This is the still life that I've picked out. And before I get started, let me show you the tools I'll be using tonight. I've got an HB pencil. That's the one I'm going to do my light drawing with for getting started, an HB pencil. Then I have a 4B pencil for shading. And I've also got a new pencil here, which is the Blackwing matte pencil, which is really a number B2, and I've got it fine down to a nice fine point, so that's going to be used for shading also. And then I've got a blender stump. It's a blender stump. It's a large one, but it's great for shading and so forth. And I've got a couple of tools we'll go in. We go in here. Also, what I have, because tonight's so important, is to have I've got a grayscale and value finder. Because in order to get the shadow right, you need to know what value you're doing. So that's very important to have a value scale, from the lightest white all the way to the darkest dark, white to black, and then all the values in between. Very, very important. You can make your own value scale, but it's also these are available on the particular sites. You can go on there and find them. Grayscale and value finder, it's called, right there. Okay, so we'll be using that time. So what I've got here is I've got a still life, what I set up, and it's got three basic shapes. I've got a cylinder here, and I've got a box or square, and I've got a little triangle, a triangle shape of wood here. And I've got it set up, and I've got I put a light on it, and I got some shadow patterns. Now, first of all, what I'm going to think about, number one, I'm looking at the structure here I have. I put this into a box. There's really a structure I'm looking at. There's a line and a line and a line. So it's more of a box type configuration. And then I'm going to show you how to put this together, and then I'm going to do some shading in order to do it. Now, also, before we go any further, look at the values. I'm going to leave some of these areas. This area over here is very light, so I'm going to leave that white. This area over here, this back wall here. This part here on the block or the square or rectangle, I'm going to leave this white. That's pretty light too. And this area down here is light, so I'm going to leave that white. And the light part of this wood here, it's so close to the other light areas, I'm going to leave this area white. The rest of them are going to be values of lights and dark. The darkest area is right in here. This shadow pattern from the light hitting the cylinder and also hitting the block of wood. Now what's very interesting is we have a reflected light here. The light coming behind this cylinder is causing a reflected light here back on the back wall. So we'll talk about that a little bit when we start drawing, okay? So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to start with the HB pencil. And number one, I talked about structure. And the structure I see is I want to have a format. So I'm going to draw in the edges here of what this. I set this up into a box formation. So I'm going to start out with a vertical line. This is this line right here. And it comes down into the corner of the box. And I want to measure that angle. The angle there, just lay the pencil there next to this line right here. You can see the edge of the box right here. So I'll line that up and bring it over here. And that's the angle I want right there. So I'm going to bring that over here and draw that angle in. So that's the angle I'm going to use to get started on. That angle is the back line. And then this angle over here on this side, there's a line over here against the wall, between the base and the side wall. So I'm going to get that angle. So I'll put the one pencil next to that, one line. I'll bring it over here, and I draw that angle. Okay? So that gets me started. That gets me started on the structure that I'm going to be drawing for. That gives me like a format. It gives me a starting point. All right, the first object I'm going to put in, I'm going to start with the cylinder. And I look up here and I say, okay, let's look at some points now. The cylinder, well, we know it's circular or has a circular shape. So I'm going to estimate the size up here to the wall. So this point up here at the top of the cylinder, this point right here, I'm going to put against the wall. So that's going to be about right here. And then I'm going to go off, I'm going to judge. Now look at if I draw a line here down the wall, I see that about 1/3 of it's, I look at this size here, and if I sight it, I can sight it. I go in and go 1, and I go 1, 2. It's about 1/3 here and 2/3 here. So it's 1/3 on this side and 2/3 on this side. I'll go over here, I'm going to make this about a 1/3. So what I do, I'm going to rough that in. This is a 1/3 of this side here. And then the other side is going to be 2/3. I go 1, 2. So that's going to be the other side of the cylinder. So I got the two sides roughed in. I got this side over here, which is 1/3 over. 1/3 is on this side of the corner, and this side is 2/3. Now there's the back. I got the back edge over here. And let's look at the side edge I've got over here. Let's look at the front edge. The front edge comes down about right there. And this side over here is this edge over here. So I'm going to start roughing this in. So now I look at some intermediate points. This edge comes around here. It's a oval shape. It's not a circle. It's an oval. And so I'm going to rough in these edges. Now, so I'll go ahead and I start drawing an oval shape for the top of that cylinder. And what I did, I started by estimating some of the intermediate points. And that's very important. I estimated this edge up here, this edge down here, the corner here, and a corner here. Then I got some points in between, and I got a nice rough edge here. I got a nice rough shape of what that's going to look like. Okay, this comes down. Okay, now the next shape I'm going to put in is the box or the square, a rectangle. Okay, it looks like it comes in. If you look at the size here, it comes in about almost halfway. It's just less than halfway. So it comes in about right here. And it comes down about halfway of the, and I'm going to look at that angle of that line, bring it over here. So it shapes about right, just about like that. So I'm going to bring that up here. It's about halfway. The angle is going to go up here. So I've got this. I found this corner here. It's about halfway over, from this edge over, almost halfway, a little less than halfway, And then I've got this line here, which I estimated that shape of that, or the angle of that particular side. And now the length of that, I'm going to estimate that to be. I'm just going to eyeball that in. Let's look at the angle now. The angle is going to be. Going to measure the angle, bring it over here. So it's going to come down about right, just like this. It's going to come down right here. Okay. And this angle here is not as, if you look at the angles, they're not the same. This angle here is a little different. So this angle here is going to come in this way. It's going to come off this corner. and it's going to come off here. It's going to be a little bit sharper. Now, if you notice these 2 points, the edge of the cylinder and the point here, not quite lined up. It's just inside that. So that's another good check. Okay, and this line comes on down. This is this edge right here. I'm drawing the edge straight down, and I can bring this edge down. Okay, now I got this corner here, and this is just about parallel. If I look at that edge and this edge, these are parallel. Close enough. So what I'll do now is I'll draw this line here parallel. To that, I'll draw this line is parallel to this line here. These angles here are slightly different. And then I'll bring this line down. From this corner here, I'll bring it straight down. So these are verticals coming straight down. Okay, now look at this edge over here now. I look at this corner here, it comes down. I've got the point marked here already. From this side, I got that line marked already. It comes down. It's about about a third of the way down. So let's see. 1, 2, 3. That's about a third of the way. This about a third of this distance here. That's about right. Now let's check this angle here. This angle here, I bring it over. It's about like that. So I'm going to eyeball these in, but I got a pretty good rough estimate there, just about where it's going to fall. Okay, so that's just now. Let's get the triangle in. Let's see. How do we do that? Let's see. Well, I can bring this line down on the side of the cylinder. I can bring that down. Now let's take a look at this line here. It's going to be, let's see, this line here comes over. Well, let's estimate it here. Let's take this line here. This line here is going to be roughly, let's size that in. That's about a third of the way in too. If I measure the edge there to the corner, that's just a little bit over a third, a little bit under a third. So I'll bring this over, 2, 3. So that's about right here. So I can rough that edge in. All right, now this edge here. Now if I notice, if I look at this corner over here, this is a line coming out of here. So I'm going to do a couple checks here. This line here comes out. And this line comes down past that line. If you look at the photograph, you can see this line is still got a little edge there. So this is going to come out. Okay, and you know, and we're doing a drawing now. So I'm not measuring it with a ruler or an angle or anything. So I'm just kind of estimating. So this is not going to be perfect, and we're trying not to get a perfect copy of this. We're just trying to get a perception of what we see. Okay, so I bring this out. This line extends about halfway. You can see, I'm drawing. I'm still sketching. You're going to see the line when I start darkening stuff in. You'll see it. This is a vertical here on this edge, and let's see, I get this angle here now, the angle of the front edge of the triangle block. It's about there. Let's see, line it up with the paper. It's almost, if I look at the edge of the paper down here, it's just about almost parallel with the bottom. Well, I'm going to make it parallel. So I can come over here and make this parallel with the bottom of the page. And that's going to be close enough. So I can make this line here parallel to the bottom of the page. And it's going to come past, if I look at the vertical now, it's going to come past this line here. If I look at this corner here comes past the vertical here is about right there. So I can bring that line down. Okay, now I can draw this line in. I got the corner here, and I got the corner there. Okay, so I completed that triangle. Now the thickness of this, I'm going to eyeball that in a little bit. I don't have to worry about measuring. I'm just going to eyeball it in. It's about that thick, and that's about all you say. It's about that thick. That looks good enough from the eyeball. So a lot of times when you make estimates, you make guesstimates of what it looks like. You don't want to make it too small, you don't want to make it too thick. Okay. So now I have the cylinder, the square or the box, and I have the triangle. Ready to go. Okay. So now we can go ahead and start shading in. Oh, before I go any further though, we need to talk about the shadow patterns, which is very important. So I'm going to rough in the shadow patterns. I'll take the HB pencil here. And it's not ready for that yet. If you want to take a look at the photograph, there's my drawing so far. It's my drawing so far. Okay, and I've roughed in the. Now I want to get into shadow patterns. This one here is a really interesting. This is the darkest one here, so it comes down at an angle. I'm going to put that in, and then it goes into the shade. It falls into the others. It marries in. And there's a cast shadow here from this cylinder, so I can put that in. It's going to be, I look at this square here, or look at this point here, and it's about off to this angle. So I'm estimating the size of that. And it's not a straight line, it angles out a little bit. And it starts over here at the edge of the cylinder, and then comes around at an angle. It's got an arc to it. It's got an arc to it, but it's at an angle, and it comes down. And you see this point here. Let's get this shadow in. There's a shadow here at the edge of the box, and I can draw that line in. It's about like this. Okay, so I'll get that angle in. It's an angle for that shadow. That cast shadow from the block goes across here. Okay, so I got that one in. All right, now let's take a look at there's a shadow down here from the triangle. It's not straight, it's got a little angle to it because of the angle of the and I'll take a look at this. Let's see, this shape here, I can approximate that. That's above this point here, about right there. So again, I'm doing some estimating. I'm doing just doing some sighting just by taking a big guess. And this point here goes beyond this line here. And then this comes off the wall. And that shadow is the shadow from the triangle block is going to come out here, and it's at an angle. It's not parallel to this side. It comes out here. Okay, so we're ready to start. We're ready to start sketching in now. Okay. All right. So what I can do now is take the 4B pencil. Well, I'm going to start with the darkest one. I'm going to start with the darkest shade. The shadow that I see here is right here. Now this pencil is a 2B, and it's got a nice. What I've done, I've used a sandpaper, and I've made an angle edge. And also you can see when I sharpened this, I made a long lead. I used a knife, a cutting knife, X-Acto knife to sharpen that pencil, because it gives me a lot more lead to work with. And then I used the piece of sandpaper to sharpen it at an angle. So I have a nice corner here to work with. So I'm going to get this is the darkest shadow on the drawing. This arrow right here. So I'll get that in, and I'll start out here with a dark shadow. And as you know, there's really in nature, and also here in this, there are no lines. So what we're seeing is shadows or edges. Edges are defined by the shadows or the differences in value, and that's what we're doing. We're learning how to recognize value and to draw that. So this is the darkest value here on the drawing. I started with that first. And that way we can evaluate the rest of the drawing based on this. Okay, there's another dark shadow, the one inside the cylinder, up here. We can put that in. Now there's a shadow that comes there. It follows the shape of the cylinder up here. It doesn't go all the way around. It starts here, then it starts getting lighter, but it comes across here at an angle. If you look at the photograph, you'll see an angle over here. And this comes around here. So there's a real dark shadow right here on the inside. And then it gets much lighter. And we can use the blending stump to make that happen. I'll take the blending stump now and take this, and what I'll do is just blend this out a little bit. And I'll come in here and I got one sharp edge, but the rest is just very sharp, just very carefully blended. But there is a dark edge right here. And it blends away to nothing. So it goes from dark to light. And it's not white because the white paper's over here. So it's a little bit off white. Then you can work this edge a little bit, make it nice and round, or circular, or white. Now this one here, I can darken this one in. So the blending stump will help me. This has got you notice here, it's got a sharp edge off this corner of the block, and then this gets a little bit softer as it comes out. So let's go ahead and darken in let's go ahead and shade in the cylinder. That's the next really, not a challenge, but the next most interesting. So now the shadow on the cylinder, it goes from light to dark, but the darkest edge is right here, or the darkest surface is right here, right behind that straight line, this corner. So that's where the darkest area is right there. Is right behind that corner, this corner of the box. I have a little shadow box. That's what I put this in for my still life. Okay, and then it gets softer as I go out, and we can blend that out with the stump. And this one this is a little darker over here as we get to the outer side over here. So as I begin to shade this out, this is a little bit darker here on this section right here. And as it goes out toward the edge over here, it gets lighter, a little bit lighter, because we got some reflected light coming off the wall, that white wall, or the white section of the box. And on this side over here, I'm going to leave this almost white. I'm just going to soften out the edge. I'm going to leave that white, okay? But the beautiful thing about this, we got this nice sharp edge here from the square or the box. Okay. Now the other interesting shape is this one over here, the shadow, the cast shadow on the wall. It starts out dark over here, on the side here. It starts dark here and it gets lighter as we come in toward the cylinder. So we'll start with the dark area first, and then work in. So I'll start with the darkest edge over here. And I could do some comparisons with my grayscale, but I think I'll just leave that alone. We can do some comparisons at the end, but right now I want to get into major dark areas. I want to get into major dark areas and major shapes. So this one here is about almost as dark as that, not quite as dark, almost as dark. So I'm taking a little bit of pressure off the pencil. I'm not pushing down as hard as I did over here. I'm using about half the pressure I used over there. So by putting more pressure on the pencil, you'll get a darker mark. So that's pretty easy. If you practice shading at all, you'll find that out, that the harder you push on the pencil, the darker you can make your mark. So you can control how dark your shadow is or shading is by how hard you push the pencil. Also, how many layers, you can put extra layers on to make it darker also. So I'm going to come up here, getting a little bit closer to this edge, but I want to leave some of it lighter because it's going to get lighter as I get closer to the cylinder. Okay, so now I can go ahead and start shading now. So over here, now, I'm going to leave almost really a light area right along the edge, which is right next to the cylinder, because that's that reflected light coming off that white surface behind. And this area in here I can shade in all the way. So the blending stump helps. It helps smooth out the pencil marks. It helps smooth out the shading from the pencil marks. And you can go back into this several times and get it smoother and smoother and smoother. But you can get I'm going to get a rough, kind of a rough outline tonight, just to get you started. Okay, now we can I want to compare some things right here, right off the bat. You can take a look. The shadow on the back of the square is about half. If you look at the value, look there. That's about dark as you can get. About there. That's about the bar. Number 2. And if we go to the value on this, it's about a number 5. So it's going from 2 to 5. So I'm going from 2 to 5. So it's a lighter value. It's about the shade of this over here, about almost. So let's shade this one in very lightly. We don't want, this is the white area of the box, but it's in way out. It's out of the path of light comes over here, so this is really not in the path of light. So it's going to be very light. And another area on this box is the top section. It's not as light as this, but it's not very dark either. So it's going to have just a little bit, just a touch of shading up here, just a touch. And it gets a little bit lighter as we get, the lights are closer over here, so it's going to get a little bit lighter as we go down. Okay, now the lighting on the wooden triangle block, it's about the same shade as this. A little bit darker than that. Not as dark as the darkest area. Okay. So I got to get a little bit darker in here. I got to darken this up a little bit in here. This has got to be my darkest section, right in this section here. And this area is going to be a little bit darker, and this is not as dark over here. Now the front side of this is about medium dark. Not as dark as the cylinder, but medium dark. And you'll notice I'm not going to darken the lines in it, because there are no lines when you look at it. It's really it's the values that we're looking at. We're looking at value differences, the lights and the darks, the lights and the shadows, and that's what we're drawing. We're drawing the light area. We're leaving the light area, and we're just drawing the shadow and the darker sides. So this takes a little bit of practice, but it does make a lot of sense. Now this section over here is a little bit lighter. It's darker than this side here, and it's lighter than this side. So it's got to be somewhere in the middle here and here. So with a little bit of just a little light pressure, and it's lighter than the background shadow. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a straight edge. If I'm coming up next, say, to a line like this, I can put a straight edge up here like this, and that way I can go right up to the edge and just go ahead and shade it all in at one time, just like this. Then I don't worry about going over the line. Okay, that's another little bit of advice, that you can use a straight edge to get a very good shape and not run over the lines too much. Okay. And the only thing I want to talk about next is the background. This area here behind the white box and next to this, it's a little bit darker. So this area here gets darker. So this really shows off the box now. So we can put this in about a medium value. It's not as dark as the darkest, but this area here is a little bit darker. So I'm just going to shade in a little bit of this so you can see the edge of this box, because I want to wrap up the session here, because you need to practice this little exercise by using the photograph and going through the steps that I've gone through here, and then practice on your own. Because this is the only way you're going to get any value out of something is by practicing and doing it yourself. And now this shadow now comes behind, and it's a little bit lighter here than the cylinder.
Meow says this is oddly calming.
Oh,
to keep up the great work.
the yeah, this is one. I'll tell you what. This is one of my fortes. I love to draw. I draw a little bit every day, and it's something I've been doing for years. I've been drawing for a long time, so it's something I really enjoy. Okay, I think I've got all the values I can talk about. Number one, it's not finished. In fact, I'll show you my finished paint. I'll show you my finished drawing over here. But let's talk about this first. I went in and I shaded. I put in the darkest area here. Then I started putting in the area next to that, which was not quite as dark, and got the shadow part of the cylinder in. Then I went and got the dark inside of the cylinder, according to the photograph. And then I went and worked on the shadow pattern on the wall, the white wall. This is going to stay white. And that's almost the same, not as dark as the darkest, but it's dark. And then this area here on the bottom top here, on the bottom section here, is lighter. That's lighter than this, and this is a little bit. Of course, this is white, and this is lighter than the cylinder. This is lighter than this. This is left white. And then I can go in with, the one last thing I can do. I can go in here now, the lines of the box itself. So I can put that in. There's a line over here. This line right here, as you see the edge of the box. I can put that in. There's a line over here. It starts back here, behind this corner, and then extends out here. It goes, let's see, it starts here, and then the corner goes over that, so I can come out here. This is the corner of this other side, and that'll separate the shadows a little bit, because that gives the dimensions of the skeleton. Remember what I started out with? I started out with a structure, and the structure was the inside of a box. This corner. And inside this corner is when I put the cylinder in, and then the box on top of that, and then I laid the triangle on top of that, and then the shadows on the wall and so forth. Okay? All right. So that really is my demonstration for tonight. Now, you can post your drawings on Facebook, on the Everetts Watercolors art group on Facebook, and there's a link to it I'll have it in the description below. Now here's the one I finished a little bit. You can see it's a little bit more defined, but here's one I did a little bit earlier this week. I had more time to do it, of course. And you can see now, when you compare it with the photograph and the drawing, the shadow patterns, the darkness of the sides, and the angles. Okay. Now also what you can do, what I also would recommend to get used to the values, is to, when you have a photograph like this is color. There's also color. Well, the next thing we're going to get into is color. So what is the value of this color? That's another really interesting problem. Well, what you can do is get a black and white photograph. Take the colored picture and print out a black and white. And that can help you a little bit with getting the values down, the darks and lights. But here you notice the color here gets washed out with a black and white. So you really have, and that's why I left it white. That's why I left it lighter. That's why I left it lighter here in my drawing, because I wanted this edge here to show off. And that's a discretion of the artist. So I decided to leave mine lighter for that particular reason, so I can see that edge, that front edge of the cylinder better. If I match those two values together, then you wouldn't be able to see this edge. Okay. All right, so you can get the photograph on Facebook. It's on the video tonight. I'm going to have it in my website, on my website, And you can get the copy of the video. On a copy of the video, you can see a diagram, and you can see another picture of the actual photograph. And you can take a snapshot. You take a snapshot on a screenshot on your computer, and you can capture it.
And that's www.everettswatercolors.com.
Right. So let me put the website on. There's my website page right there, and you can see on my website page. You go down to Simply Drawing with Everett, and that's where you'll find on everettswatercolors.com. That's where you'll find a video posted there tonight of Simply Drawing with Everett, and there you can get a copy. You can get a copy of the see a copy of the video we played tonight, and you can also do a screenshot of the photograph and the diagrams I went through tonight. So appreciate you for looking in tonight, and I'll be back again next Thursday, and I'll be doing a painting class at 2:00 p.m. On Thursday, and then I'll be doing a drawing class here at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Thursday. Now, next week, we're going to move into color. And I think I'm really excited about that. And that's the next step to painting. But from values, number one, the value is very important. Knowing how to understand what's dark and what's light and where the shadows are. And this lesson tonight will help you do that. And you ought to do this lesson several times, not just one time, but do it again. And set your own still life up, and do your own drawings from what you see. Okay, well, that concludes tonight, and what I'm going to say is be safe this week, and happy drawing, and I hope to see maybe you're drawing on Facebook, on Everetts Watercolors Art Group, and the link will be in the video here after I've made the video tonight. Okay, so we'll see you next week, and I'll see you at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So